using a bag fertiliser is a science. Using organic manures is more in the dabbling into the dark arts. It's an art. You can't go crazy. It's something you need to slowly incorporate into your farm, little and often, build the soil up. To me, it's more about building the organic matter in the soil over a longer term, but while watching your indexes and seeing that your indexes are staying up at a level where you're getting the most use out of it, and then you're reducing your chemical fertiliser from that.
All farmers strive to make decisions that benefit not only the short term, but also the long-term sustainability of their farms. Some focus more on immediate gains, such as organic manures to reduce chemical fertiliser use, which in turn enhances soil resilience over time. Others incorporate long-term strategies like planting forestry to secure a longer-term income. What actions are you taking on your farm to improve the medium to long-term sustainability? You are listening to the latest episode of the Tillage Edge with me, Michael Hennessy. We would really appreciate it if you could listen, follow and give us a review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast from. This week we held a workshop on the farm of John Crowley in Wexford. John is a Signpost farmer who is working hard to implement both short and long-term improvements to his farm. He joins the podcast to discuss key areas he's focusing on, including organic manures, cultivation systems and how these fit into his overall production systems. I also spoke to John Mann, a Signpost tillage advisor, and Owen Lyons, a Teagasc tillage advisor. To start with, I asked John Crowley to introduce himself by describing where he is located and his farming system.
I'm farming here, there's a couple miles outside Ferns, predominantly malting barley, mixing in a little bit of beans, some winter cropping, winter barley whenever it suits, and then also on top of that, I'm a contractor for organic manures.
Okay, and your system, and we'll come to this later, but you have a little bit of min-till and ploughing as well.
Yes, I, from many years, have been probably anti-min-till in many ways, loving the plough. I am starting to move over to the dark side, doing a little bit more min-till in the system, but trying to bring it in a way that makes sense. I kind of found that a lot of min-till systems were go spend money, buy lots more metal, and keep buying more metal until you find the exact right system. I wanted to find a system that I could modify simply and cheaply. Okay,
we'll explore the dark side in a few minutes, so we'll come back to that one in a second. You talked about organic manures, and you are bringing in some organic manures from different sources. What sort of quality is in those organic manures?
Well, everything comes in as tested, so I know exactly what the dry matter, the NP and K levels are in it. The product I have at the moment is quite high in nitrogen and in phosphorus, very low in potash, but it's I think once you know what you have, you can work with it and go from there with that.
So it's important to you to know what's actually in it in terms of dry matter, in terms of what you're actually putting out?
Yeah, the dry matter is more so, I suppose, for me, it's getting it out on land, and it means it won't run. How it can be spread through either umbilical systems or through tankers. Everything nowadays is going out via the dribble bar for obviously environmental reasons, but also even just to keep the smells down. So from that point of view, it's important to do it that way.
And I'm just looking out here up the hill. When you say don't run, you mean don't run back down the hill at you?
Exactly. Especially when it comes to years like we're getting most years now, where weather is very unpredictable. You want to be able to go and put onto a field, and for it to want to stick to that field until you get turned down as soon as possible, hopefully within 6 hours. Okay,
I'm going to bring John Mann in here into the conversation just for a second. John, in terms of the use of organic manures within, the trying to reduce your greenhouse gases or trying to be, I suppose, maybe a bit more sustainable, how do you as a Signpost advisor view that?
Thanks, Michael. Well, I suppose we take back a step to the Signpost programme itself. We have 12 steps for individual tillage farms to follow. One of those steps is incorporating organic manures onto the farm. When we say organic manures, what we're trying to do is find a way to have the most efficient use of nutrients, the NPK that we have in those organic manures. With greenhouse gas emissions, 70% of those are generally on a tillage farm coming from nitrogen related products. So any way we can reduce and substitute that in any way is what we're trying to do with the organic manures.
Okay, so to fit in reasonably well on a sustainable type of system.
Yes, exactly. And naturally, And more so, I suppose, with higher fertiliser prices, you're trying to reduce costs on the farm as well.
John, you mentioned there on your farm and or in this farming system that you have a lot of malt and barley in the system. And I suppose that the Teagasc advice would have been still is probably to a degree, that don't really use organic manures in malt and barley because it's a bit unpredictable. But yet you're using it in your system. How are you managing that?
I suppose what would be said to me a while ago, using a bag fertiliser is a science. Using organic manures is more in the dabbling in the dark arts. It's an art. You can't go crazy. It's something you need to slowly incorporate into your farm, little and often, build the soil up. To me, it's more about building the organic matter in the soil over a longer term, but while watching your indexes and seeing that your indexes are staying up at a level where you're getting the most use out of it, and then you're reducing your chemical fertiliser from that.
Okay, so you, from our earlier discussions, you were kind of saying that your farm struggles to get low protein on the farm anyway, regardless of organic manures, whether it's there or not. Has that changed much? Is it even harder now with organic manures in the system?
It's probably difficult in some ways to say with the changing of varieties in malting barley. The variety I have to grow here at the moment for the malting company is not to my preference as regards to suiting the soil and the protein levels, but I am getting away with it mostly, not always. It's probably a decision that hasn't made it sowing. Are you sowing as a crop of malting barley, or are you sowing a crop of barley that may become malting? I think when you think of it that way, it's a lot easier to work. Well, if you're going out to sow malting barley, you're probably going to go out with 70 units of nitrogen to guarantee you're going to get low protein, but you mightn't get the yield out of it. So to get the balance in yield and protein is where that dark art kind of comes into it.
And from that point of view, in terms of dark arts, you are reducing your chemical fertiliser on your farm.
Most definitely, yes. Yeah. And again, by watching, it's a lot of soil sampling and seeing watching the yields, watching soil samples, good husbandry, watching what's there, and once you can kind of work that, and soil temperatures, obviously, like soil temperature, air temperature, it all comes in here using organic manure. So it's a little bit of watching what weather is going to do. You don't want the organic manures to kick off in early June. You want it to be coming in, in April, giving it pushing the growth into the plant itself rather than up into the head.
So does that preclude you then from using organic manures late on in the season? So take last year, for instance, you couldn't really do much in terms of land work until April. Did that kind of preclude you from using?
Yeah, definitely. We would be even more careful when it comes to it a year like last year. Obviously, you just don't know what the rest of the year is going to do. It can get very cold after that too. Ideally, I suppose the organic manures are more suited to maybe winter crops or to crops that aren't malting barley, where you can go on that bit earlier. But again, it's one of those systems where you just really have to take it day by day, field by field, crop by crop.
And in terms of those organic manures in the springtime, you mentioned your both plough-based and your min-till. For the organic manures, how do you incorporate those? Ideally,
plough. Organic manures, you want to get it down as much as possible. Using min-till systems will probably get down 80% of it or more. It's just, again, by ploughing you are doing a better job of it. It's a cleaner system. You're reducing smells, reducing any losses as well on the organic manure when it's going on in a slurry-based system.
Okay. I just want to bring Owen Lyons in. Owen is a tillage advisor, your tillage advisor for a long time down here. Owen, in terms of we'll start with the spring first. Is there much guys getting out there trying to plant a few spring crops at the moment?
Yeah, Michael, there seems to be a lot of activity after happening this week. We had excellent drying all week, and I suppose the favourable conditions during February and even January meant a lot of ploughing and I suppose primary cultivation had already been completed in fields. So it meant that guys were able to get out this week and get drilling. I suppose, look, there's probably not as much spring crops in the area as there would have been in previous years, given that the autumn was so good. There was a great chance to get winter crops in the ground, but I suppose a lot of the land that has been left is probably either for beans or malt and barley. So there's, people want to get in, they want to get them crops in early, and it's an absolute excellent chance to get them done.
So from a lot of the cultivation we're seeing going on at the moment, is that beans going in at the moment, or is it barley, or both?
both in my area anyway. Possibly it's probably only beans in different areas. But I think up around the Tye, Stradbally, Portlaoise direction, there's always a great tradition, I suppose, of malting barley and getting it drilled early. And when conditions allow, the advice would always be to try and get it drilled as early as we can. And definitely conditions were allowing this week to get it in there.
It's probably the first year in a long time guys have actually got in this early. And there's probably a bit of a trend maybe previously when you were getting in early, the seeding rates might have been a little bit lower. What are guys going with?
Yeah, I suppose, you're right. It is the first year, I'd say, in maybe up 3, 4, 5 years even, that we've seen it in so early. And especially it goes back to having a lot of ploughing done. We've seen the past few years that, the day you'd like to be sowing was actually the first day it was nearly dry enough to plough ground or get land ready. So that was a great opportunity. In relation to seeding rate, I suppose, a lot of people, I suppose through Chog's advice over the years have increased seeding rate, especially on malt and barley, because we know that producing enough shoots in spring barley is where our yield is going to come from. So a lot of people are keeping their seeding rates, up, I suppose, for 180, 190 kilos a hectare in crops. Yeah.
That's very good. Are the ground conditions good enough that guys are rolling afterwards, or are they kind of leaving it until maybe it comes up and see what happens then?
Yes, I don't think it's just not quite there. I was out around the Tye area there yesterday, and my own opinion was that land seemed dry. It was dry enough on top to drill, but not quite to roll. And we've actually seen that the past few years as well, where just when you go down maybe 3, 4, 5 inches into land, it's a bit tacky. It's just not ready to roll. So I think holding off until it's up, given the early sowing date, there'll be plenty of opportunity to roll later on this month. So hopefully, that'll be the approach people will take.
So as you say, the weather's been relatively good. Ground conditions are dry. Are there other jobs stacking up on the winter crop side of the house? Is there fertiliser going out all over the place?
Yeah, fertiliser is definitely moving this week as well. And as one farmer just mentioned to me, maybe the mixed winter and spring crop grower hasn't actually got to spring crops yet, because there is so much jobs that have stacked up on the winter crop side of things. But when you look at winter barley, oats and winter wheat, they are quite advanced for the time of year. So really, on wheat and oats especially, a lot of guys are holding off on nitrogen, but getting their P's and K's out at the moment, because I suppose especially there's some wheat in the area was drilled, late September, early October, and it's quite advanced now. And
when you say advanced, is that is it just got lots of leaves and lots of shoots and everything on it, or is it kicking into the kind of the growth stage 30, kind of 31 kind of stage? Yeah,
there's oats especially now. We're heading for growth stage 30 in the area, early sowing oats again, so and wheat I suppose maybe a slight bit behind, but you just be holding off on nitrogen maybe for another week or two yet on that.
And the winter barley, there's a good bit of that sown this year as well. Is that I think that's kind of moved into maybe growth stage 30 at the moment, is it?
It has, and look, there's nitrogen going out there all right, especially there's a good bit of hybrid barley I suppose in the area as well, so farmers are probably getting out that bit early with nitrogen on the hybrids, just that they're I suppose moving through the growth stages that bit quicker than 2 rows as well. So but on the winter barley, crops are looking excellent as well. It's a big contrast to last year. We have 100% crops nearly established in fields, and we're really set up well, I think, on the winter crop side of things, going into the spring.
Just in the winter barley, as it is a little bit further ahead, any issues in terms of disease control, or should guys be thinking about growth regulator maybe in the next couple of weeks? Yeah,
I suppose that has propped up the past week or 10 days in relation to PGR and winter barley. Maybe going with Cycocel or something with a wetter in as well, something like Manipulator or K2. My own view is we're probably a bit soon yet. I think the past week the overhead conditions have been quite nice, but I'd say soil temperature and cool nights and growth is probably not as good as we might think. And I think the forecast for next week is back to maybe a few frosts overnight as well. So a lot of the nitrogen is probably going out on winter barley this week or maybe last weekend. So winter barley, it might only be waking up now. So we're time enough for any PGRs just yet until that nitrogen really kicks in and the temperatures get a bit better.
Thanks, well. And disease on winter barley, anything around at the minute?
Yeah, we saw a small bit there pre-Christmas. I saw a bit of mildew and that, but it doesn't seem too bad there at the moment. Again, we're a bit away from that. We're probably the end of the month on that as well. I suppose a few farmers in the area again maybe looking at herbicides on wheat. Probably not as much as other years because the autumn was so good. There was opportunity to get your pre-am on. Okay. But there might be just a few things to tidy up. So especially if maybe you have a broom issue or something like that needs tidying.
John, you mentioned earlier in terms of dark arts, and you kind of did mention machinery costs. From what you said, I'm kind of getting from you didn't change because you wanted to spend more money on machinery necessarily.
Look, I, as many tillage farmer, would have the addiction to metal. And I love machinery, love buying machinery, looking at machinery that goes along with it.
We actually are looking at quite a bit of machinery in here around the yard, and it's very nice machinery.
Yes, this is my addiction shed. This is where you see all that. But look, when the Tams came out, I was probably lucky enough. I upgraded to a disc type drill. I have a Harsh Pronto 4 metre here, which is way bigger than what I need, but I was just lucky the way with the Tams came out, the second-hand machines got cheaper. Then also through Tams, I purchased a 3 metre disc harrow. At the time, more so for sowing cover crops, but as it worked out, I saw the options that I could do with that to start moving towards a min-till type system.
So for people who don't know that drill is a disc type drill, is it?
It's a disc, yeah, so it's 2 rows of discs in cultivation at the front of the drill, then a row of consolidating wheels, then followed by your sowing coulters, which is a disc type system, and then a press wheel behind that to consolidate the soil. So
you would have seen that as a very flexible type of system.
Very flexible.
Plough ground or
it'll work on plough ground. It'll allow, basically, it will allow, if you're min-tilling and there's maybe a little bit of trash left behind in that kind of system, it'll flow through. It's not going to drag. It's not going to cause issues with regards to sowing.
So you've seen that system, and I think maybe with Owen's advice, maybe you might have started doing a little bit of min-till just to kind of see how it might work in your system, even though you weren't particularly sold on it at the start.
The Signpost programme here and different programmes I was involved in, we started looking at trials. And one of the trials we did here a couple of years ago was plough-based system versus min-till, direct drill, and any other way we could do it. And from that, we saw that the min-till can work. Plough-based system is probably the simplest, cheapest, and the system that's going to give you guaranteed results every year. While the min-till type system, I generally would have hated the term min-till, but the min-till systems can work if done correctly and worked into the system, not using good husbandry to bring it along. So from that, I had bought a 3 metre disc harrow to the Tams. I then bought this 5-leg, second-hand 5-leg grubber to kind of go, that works between the tractor and the disc harrow, which gives me, as I would call it, a poor man's top down. If anyone knows what top down is, it's a very expensive machine that Vaderstad make, which is a great job for min-tilling, but for the acres I have here, just wouldn't justify financially. So this was a way which brought me slowly into the realm of the dark side of the min-till. Okay,
so in terms of the dark side, Owen, that machine with the legs on it, it kind of sits as John said, sits between the tractor and the disc harrow. What's the purpose of that? Is it just to get deeper, or what's the real purpose of it?
Yeah, look, I suppose John mentioned there about min-till and I suppose deeper min-till. The disc harrow on its own, I suppose, like it's only going to go down maybe 2 inches into the soil. It's probably not just going to give that much tillage in order to successfully establish a crop. So basically, the reason that John went for the grubber legs in front of the disc is just to give that depth. And we would have tried here on the farm looking at different depths to see what was optimum, and generally at the moment John is going probably down about 6 inches with the legs followed by the disc, just to get drainage and to get good establishment. The longer John is in the system and the longer he's min-tilling, and the use of cover crops and organic manures as well in the system, potentially we might be able to lift the grubber legs up a bit and still maintain a good seabed. But look, that'll be down the road further into as John gets into the min-till system.
Okay, so John, just a final question for you in terms of that system. You now have that, as you say, it's a relatively cheap system on the farm. It's relatively flexible. I'm also looking at a really nice plough you have over there in the corner as well, so you're really well set up. Do you see yourself switching more towards min-till, or are you going to maintain that mix? Because an awful lot of people at the start of Mintail of their journey, the first thing they always would have said to everybody is, get rid of your plough as quick as you can. Do you intend to do that?
I can't see me selling the plough in the near future. I'll be holding on to it, generally even for weather reasons where, look, we've seen the back ends of years have been tough trying to get in winter crops. The plough I have is way bigger than I need again, but it's something that's there is paid for. I don't think it's going to be of any major issue to keep it there. I love the idea of options, that you can come in, even now we're at the 6th of March today, and I can go plough, I can min-till, I can do whatever I choose to get crops in from here on out. The systems here, it's not costing me the world. Time would be the big thing for me, where if the year is coming right for min-till, I can go out, I can, with the system I have there, very easily go and prepare 50 acres there with using the disc and be home in time for supper. Where a plough, with the field size here is quite small, it's very rocky soil. You can't drive very fast with plough. I'd be 2 days to get my 50 acres at least. Time management is more and more prevalent as regards to farming, and for me here, this suits.
John, listen, thanks very much for that. It's great to be on the farm and getting a really good insight into that, and best of luck for the year to come.
Thanks very much.
So that's it for this week, and my thanks to John for joining me on the podcast. So as usual, if you enjoyed the podcast, then recommend it to a friend or colleague, and as always, rate, review and follow on Apple or Spotify so you never miss an episode. And for more information, go to teagasc.ie. I'm Michael Hennessy, thanks for listening, and I'll be back next week with more tillage news and advice.